Welcome to Pearls on a Pig podcast with Charlotte and Dolly, where we uncover everything you should know about Vegas philanthropy. Let's head to the studio now and see what we've unpacked in this episode. Hey, Charlotte, I want to talk about the stuff that we left off on last episode. You mentioned about this organization that had this expose done, and I want to learn more. So I know you've been looking at some of the stories that have been written, so let's talk about that particular organization in Las Vegas.
Dolly, of course, I like to do my due diligence. And as soon as we were done with last week's episode, I did a little bit of a deep dive. And lo and behold, I found the interview from the whistleblower that Channel 13 did with them. And it literally says, the title of it says, Whistleblower says some of this organization's staff members' spending leaves less money for survivors, meaning money is allocated for the shelter or whatnot, but through her findings, they were spending money on themselves, right? So looking at it, you're like, okay, organizations spend money on potential donors and things of that nature. Like, that's understood. But when you're talking about a staff member who is not responsible for raising funds, so they have no need to be out there in the community whining and dining folks. But however, spending money of up to the tune of north of $5,000, almost $6,000 a month on Starbucks, on Panera, on sushi, and that money is supposed to be for the folks that are coming to this organization for assistance, for help. What are we doing? And it just falls back into what we talked about in our very first episode, board oversight. Who's taking the accountability for this? And why does this keep happening? And why do we keep seeing it? During my deep dive, I realized there was a 10-part expose done with an investigation that started in October of 2024. So it's all public. It's out there. It's on the Channel 13 website so that our listeners and followers can look into it. But it just speaks volumes to what's happening with the trust factor again with these organizations. But even more alarming is all of this is happening and the leadership is still in place.
How disheartening. I mean, all of it. Oh, gosh, there's so much to unpack right there in just the first few minutes of what you said. So, yes, I'm definitely going to link this story in our comments for our listeners to see and hear on their own, because I think that's super important. And I think that we should definitely call out this to donors to listen to too, because this involves you and your money and your time and what exactly is happening. And if you're still giving to this place, are you comfortable either knowing or not knowing that this was going on? But, you mentioned that this is an organization here in town, and I am familiar with some of the story that was on the news about this company. So I understand it to be the state's largest domestic violence shelter that's under scrutiny here. And there's two domestic violence shelters here, women's domestic violence shelters here in town. And I know that they operate very similarly in terms of what the interior for a woman seeking refuge there is like. My understanding from hearing stories and interviews from people that are actually utilizing the shelter is it's worse than the environment that they were living in. I mean, where it's not sanitary. Food is not accessible like these organizations portray or claim that they are. So, I mean, are they really helping these women, or are they just giving them a bed to sleep in for the night?
I mean, that's the million-dollar question, right? Going through this article, apparently there was a cell phone video taken in April of 2024 by a client, and her remarks are, "This is day 3. They've been starving us. We ain't had no food. They usually fill up the refrigerators. We ain't had no food. No eggs, no juice, no nothing." And then it continues to say, "I feel like it's Hunger Games. You have to basically fight to survive in there. It's horrible." So not only are these women fighting for their lives with their abuser and finally getting the courage enough to leave with nothing to get some assistance from this well-known organization, to now be faced with this nonsense. So what are we talking about? It looks like the state stepped in, went in October to check on bond concerns that were shared by the women. They found, quote, "some food present but not a great deal." Again, we have to be able to make these spaces safe in every aspect, and that means even 3 square meals. So what are we doing here? There's not enough accountability that I see. Apparently, the organization has declined, interview requests, but they did mention, this is the part that killed me, they said in a statement, quote, Clients may bring their own food into the shelter. If you're leaving in the middle of the night, the last thing you're thinking about is filling a bag of groceries, right? Especially if you have children in tow.
Right. Here's the thing. Yeah. And look, first of all, if these women are fleeing and when they're fleeing in the middle of the night, obviously top of mind is kids and safety and get out, do what you got to do, right? They rely very heavily on these shelters to be providing all their basic necessities because they know they just left without everything. And to the public, these shelters are portraying this is where we spend our money is on food and hygiene and giving these women all of those things because they know they've left in the middle of the night. And then the other part of that is if you're the shelter, where are you spending your money? Because that's where your money is supposed to be going. So if you aren't spending it on the one thing that your main mission is to do, which is to provide safety and security to these women or children or families, then please enlighten us. What's more important than that to spend money on? I mean, I understand that it could be very expensive and costly to run these organizations. I know that they must have a very high cost associated with feeding the amount of people that are staying nightly or weekly or long term. Some of these programs are 24 months, right? So I get that there's an expense, but you can't tell me that this is your mission and you don't even provide food to these women that are there. That is just absolutely mind blowing to me and that you're still in business as an organization here, claiming you're helping people. I want to know more about when the news went out there and had the dialogue and the interview with the actual staff or the director. I mean, what's her response?
Yeah, I believe the investigation started in October of 2024. And then they did a whole 10-part series where you'll see some of the interviews with the CEO of the organization. And even watching those, it was just extremely scripted. Didn't show any remorse, any concern. It was just basically putting it back on either the client or, things of that nature. It's just like, what is happening here? Because, in Las Vegas, we have a very huge issue with domestic violence, human trafficking, sex trafficking, things like that. And so when you have an organization of this magnitude with these kinds of issues, then again, the question is, what are you doing? Are you really trying to help? Is this really happening? Are you really starving these women? Not to mention, I looked up one of the videos, and I don't know, you've probably seen this organization's trucks around the city. Apparently they pick up donations from the community to help clothe, right? Their clients that come in. Because again, some women are coming in with, I assume, no clothes on their back. They're just out the door when they have the chance. But lo and behold, this clothing is being sold. It's not being given to the shelter. They're selling it to a retailer.
And let me understand that though. The public perception is that they're donating this clothing so that it in turn can be given to the women or the tenants staying at the shelter. And the organization is actually selling it for a profit. Is that paying for their overhead? Is that, I mean, clearly they're not putting any food in the fridge. So we know they're not buying food with the money that they're making. So what is it buying?
That would be my understanding that it's supposed to pay maybe for overhead. It's definitely a revenue stream, but where's that revenue going to? You know? And so again, it's another red flag. It's a huge concern on how these organizations are portraying the work that they're doing versus the behind the scenes of the inner workings of how they're raising their funding and where it's going.
And I couldn't agree with you more. I would say that there's two parts to this, right? I mean, we hear stories all the time when someone leaves, whether it's an NPO, nonprofit organization or corporate America, there's always the disgruntled employee that's going to, explode and leak all the secrets and tell all the bad that goes on behind there. But when the news or a reporter comes in and does a story on this kind of, misfortune that's going on, I don't even know the word to use right now because I'm still in shock. But I can't help but believe that PR damage control for the CEO to go out there and just say, well, you know, this is how it happened or this is why it happened, and there's no accountability and there's nobody else asking follow-up questions. I mean, again, board oversight. You've got a board of directors that the CEO reports to, which is the people that are supposed to be that second set of eyes looking at it. So, where was their feedback and comment? I mean, somebody had to have known something.
I don't think I saw a word from anybody from the board. I didn't see a word from the president of the board. Everything just came from CEO or, PR statements, which again, to me, is a tell all, right? Of the fact that you are neglecting the needs of these women that are coming to your shelter, or you just really don't care.
I find that so, I mean, it's disturbing to me because these are women who are making split decisions for safety and for security for not only themselves, but possibly for the children that they have, right? So they're making these decisions to get out in hopes that this shelter that they're going to is going to pick up the pieces for right now so that they can just have some relief to get their life back on track. They're supposed to be, finding solutions to help them find employment if they're unemployed, to get back on their feet, finding some sort of help and resources in the community to get these women self sustaining. And none of that is happening. And even more so, they're starving them. I don't want to say starving because I don't know if anybody's truly starving. But when you tell me that you're reading the interview, that there's no food in the fridge, but yet this company and this organization's got money allocated to provide meals to these people, and there's no food, that's, I mean, when old Mother Hubbard goes to the cupboard.
However, the CEO is to the tune of, I don't know, north of $260,000 a year.
Her salary is that high?
Her salary, yeah.
How many employees do they have over there? Do you know?
I do not. I didn't do a count on the number of employees, but I would say they would probably range between, I want to say, 30 to 40, if that, right? And it could be more because, from my understanding, they also have court advocates that help the women through their court processes. And so that's a great part of what they do as well. So I don't want to just shed the light on just like they're a terrible organization. I just feel like it's terrible leadership that has taken place because
I agree with you. I don't, by no means is this a reflection of what the mission is and what the overall goals are of the organization. This is just terrible behavior on behalf of a leader that is supposed to be guiding, the staff and also providing a service and finding resources for these women. I mean, that's the biggest piece here. And if you are not even providing basic necessities to them, I don't understand how they're still receiving funding from whatever sources, whether that's community support donors or, even grant money.
so here's another part of the interview process. So the whistleblower, they were part of, which I believe you heard of, the Giving Machine, right? Okay. So there was a 2023 holiday giving program that provided donations in part to buy Visa gift cards for this organization's clients. When the whistleblower tried to trace them, she had questions about how the organization's staffers distributed them. And her questions were, if they're on scene with Metro, did they provide it to a survivor there? Did they provide it to a survivor at the shelter? How was it used? And where was the tracking for this? Those are legitimate questions because they were given, you got to mark it on the books. You got to account for how it's spent. So money in is money out. In her November progress report, emailed to the organization's leadership, she wrote, $2,200 in Visa gift cards were untracked, creating compliance risks and challenges in verifying expenditures. So we can't find $2,200 of where this money went that were literally meant for the survivors of this shelter or who sought help from this shelter.
Yeah. Let me just interject real quick because I want our listeners to understand if they're not aware of the giving machine and what that entails, because where that money comes from is very, very important. But the giving machine is a program that is based out of the LDS church. And they put these vending machine style out at the malls, and they select the charities that will be receiving the funding that are in those vending machines. And then throughout the holiday season, visitors to the mall can make contributions and pick what they want to provide to these charities. And then at the end of the giving season, they tally it all up and it goes to those charities. Well, it's unfortunate that you say that those Visa gift cards, $2,200 in Visa gift cards, is unaccounted for, because in the giving machine, when a donor selects that they want a Visa gift card to be given to a domestic shelter resident or victim there, that's what their intentions are for. And when there are missing gift cards by staff, that's a terrible thing for not only the giving machine, if they knew. I don't know if they are aware of how their funding was. I would assume they would, because they do ask for a report of where the gift cards were allocated to at the end of the giving season. But then again, who knows what they told them? And then, secondly, the women that should have gotten those, where are they? What happened to them? What didn't they get? I mean, are they forced to use their own money that would have potentially got them back on their feet?
Yeah, I mean, these are questions again where we're seeing certain things, we're hearing things, and then nobody wants to question. And so, is the donor just saying, hey, do what you want to do? We've done our due diligence, we've done our part, right? But then it gets worse. So it states that apparently the program officer was using her credit card to purchase the Visa cards, which doesn't make sense. And then the survivor was actually supposed to sign off on a sheet that they received it. And those sheets were supposed to be held in the finance office. So you have a protocol in place, right, for accountability. But again, this person is noticing none of the protocol is being followed. So again, untraceable of where those funds were going. It's just sad that people would find a way. And we go back to our very first episode of you're extorting from the clientele, from the community to be self-serving. And this is why the general sector, even on a national level for non-profits, is being questioned, not just by this administration, but by all communities, because they're crumbling and people are getting sick and tired, and these leaks are happening. Whistleblower issues are coming out because everybody wants to know what's happening. And I honestly want to thank probably this new generation of millennials and Gen Xers, because they want to know, right? They're bringing it to the forefront. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad that they're doing it. Yeah, exactly. I love that they're doing it, because it's been for so long. It's just been, I'm a giver. I want to give. I write a check. I know you're doing good. And the trust factor was there. And then as these stories come out and people are starting to realize, they're giving money to organizations that really are in trouble. And to me, when you are running a domestic violence shelter, that's a critical resource. That's women in fight or flight mode that can't make decisions in a split second. So they're fleeing for you to help them. And then when they get there, it's not at all the way it was supposed to be or the way it was portrayed to the community. And that's so unfortunate. I can't imagine bringing little children into a facility where the food is scarce, the conditions are filthy. I mean, I've heard the stories, I've seen the news stories where there's bed bugs and there's, very minimal everything, body wash, shampoo, your basic stuff. And here these women are just like, I'm here for help. And this is the help we're getting. It's almost like I was better off on my own, you know?
Right. And then let's look at the flip of the women who do go to those shelters, who are not abused, and taking the beds of those that really need them. We get it that we have a huge issue here in Las Vegas with unhoused folks. but a lot of them choose to be. And then, I'll admit I have a friend that was in jail, and they were in jail for like 3 days. This was way back in the day. But there was a person that would come in to the point like she was there every month, and the COs knew her and called her tweaker because she just needed 3 hot meals and a cot, right? But that was her MO. She knew she was unhoused, she knew her situation, but she also knew she could get arrested and have a place to sleep and 3 hot meals. And so that was her MO. So now it's carried over, into the shelters where you can't deny people or even question, from what I understand. Right. And so, what does that do to the population of women that truly need the help?
Right. And I mean, there's no real way to fix that at the moment. I mean, we do have an issue with the homeless population here, and especially where these shelters are located. I mean, they are in locations where our homeless population, is vast. So it's easy to jump from shelter to shelter after you've been asked to leave one for a night off the street. I get that. But yes, there is protocol in place where, in order to enter these shelters, there has to be either a police report, or you can't even question women why they're there or what circumstance. You just have to take them for their word. And I'm certain that there are women or people, men, that are abusing that as well and using the I'm a victim in order to get that free meal, shelter. I mean, look, don't go to this domestic place because I'll tell you what, you won't be fed. The fridge is empty and the CEO is making a lot of money. She should be buying some dinners.
Yeah, well, she's also getting bonuses.
Well, her bonus check should be feeding the women in her shelter.
Nope, they showed from her 2023 she got a $35,000 bonus. With even though the revenue was down $2 million from the prior year, they gave her a $35,000 bonus. And then when they asked what she's done to deserve that $35,000 bonus, they got nothing, no answer. So I want to know, what has she done to get a $35,000 bonus?
Here, I'm going to leave you with this because we're almost out of time. But all I'm going to say is, just because I'm a smartass, but that CEO needs to take her bonus to the other nonprofit organization that we talked about on a previous episode that can get 3 meals for $1. She could have fed that shelter for a long time. This is what's happening with people being overpaid, getting bonuses that, for what? For keeping an empty refrigerator? You weren't successful. You didn't earn a bonus for keeping these women fed, clothed, and safe. You victimized them.
And not to mention that your total revenue was down $2 million. So it's just, again, questions to answer, questions that ponder, and disbelief of why and how does this continue to happen more and more and more.
Yeah, shocking. I hope people out there do their research. I mean, I don't want anybody to be victimized, especially a donor who thinks they're doing good and giving back to support a good cause and a mission and get behind an organization. I just ask that they please do their research. Just quick Google search, quick scan of a 990. Even Google the CEO. Make sure she's never been arrested. I mean, those are logical things to do, right? Treat it as an employee, do a background search real fast.
Right, right. I mean, check court documents.
But I will tell you what, yeah, easily done, especially with today's, access to technology, everything's online. So, definitely do that. Don't just trust the words of others or your friends that are telling you, I donate to a great organization. Yeah, they're great maybe for some other people, but they're not great for you if that's just not your jam, especially if you want to feed people and then the fridge is empty. So I am going to make sure that we have the stuff we talked about today, in particular, those news stories that we were covering, in our link so that our listeners can definitely do a deep dive and some research. I know that that is a very long, you said 10 episodes. So, yeah, so there's a lot that they've uncovered in that organization. So, we'll definitely link it in there. But, Charlotte, I don't have anything else for today. I think we should wrap it up.
10 episodes. Dolly, I agree. I think I'm a little overwhelmed just with all that we keep uncovering week after week. But I do hope to continue to do so, just so the community is a lot more aware. So until next week.
I agree. I'll see you then. Bye. Thank you for listening to Pearls on a Pig podcast with Charlotte and Dolly. If you want to reach out to us with suggestions for a topic on a future episode, drop us an email at pearlsonapigpodcast@gmail.com.